And that's the thing with the ever-changing times. It's like we need someone here to be that voice. And that's one thing I've talked about, I think a couple weeks ago, is we were lucky enough, even through with these changes, to actually have adults as coaches. Even Pat Fitzgerald not coaching a game yet, we know who he is. We know how he handles business. It's nice to have them here. It's nice to have Tom Izzo be the voice of the university, even though he probably doesn't necessarily want to be. To have Adam Nightingale in place, even to have Robin Freilich in place of women's basketball, just someone who's been there, has shown that growth. Like, could you imagine how this would have went if we would have had Jonathan Smith or Mel Tucker still in charge? Like, I don't know, like, how the football program would even attempt. Like, Jonathan Smith wouldn't have said a word. And I don't know, Mel Tucker might have pulled the Matt Patricia move and just pulled the microphone under his chin when a tough question was asked. So I'm just happy there was actual adults hired as coaches to at least be a strong voice throughout this change.
Yeah, you look at it from the athletic department and everything going on, you just felt like, okay, with basketball and football, there's a little bit too much noise and chaos in at times when you realize there were some issues off the field as opposed to just maintaining the sense of calm that you needed on the field. And you realize, okay, with the controversies that kind of started to swirl away from the field, you just wanted to make sure that the programs were that the program athletically was just kind of going in the right direction and evolving, and making sure that the standard of academics and making sure that you're bringing in the right leaders and the right opportunities. But bottom line, it's about winning. It's about winning at the highest level and maintaining, competitiveness at the biggest spot. And Ryan, when you make a decision and you bring in Jonathan Smith, it just wasn't galvanizing. It was not a galvanizing move in any capacity. And it was good, in terms of at least, moving away from the Tucker era. But Jonathan Smith just couldn't really galvanize the alumni or everybody together. And a change had to be made. The product just didn't evolve fast enough. And I just think that it was an interesting hire when you really look at it, organizing everything and bringing in somebody that maybe just a little bit. I think that the thing that we kind of just started to see was pretty quickly in over his head. I think that leadership should have known that he was in way over his head when he came to a program like the Spartans, because the alumni and the fans were not going to tolerate 6 wins that, in the way in which the players didn't evolve, the recruits, and it was a tough battle. It was a tough uphill climb to, kind of handle everything in terms of what Jonathan Smith needed to do. But I really do like the addition of Pat Fitzgerald. I do think that he can bring in the style of football that I think Spartans want, especially on the heels of what Jonathan Smith was trying to do, change the offense and bring in his personnel. It just never got off the ground, and the defense, Ryan, was just never in a position to succeed in his time with the Spartans.
It never meshed. I like the hire when it happened, just because like he built Oregon State up from 5.5 feet under, and built them up to an 8, 9, 10 win program. And he was from the number 2 school in the state. He should understand an in-state rivalry, but I just, like you said, I don't know if he understood the magnitude of Michigan State, of football on the East Coast. Like, he had the West Coast vibe to him, the laissez-faire kind of attitude, and that just didn't mesh well. Where Pat Fitzgerald, like, we talk about winning press conferences and how it's kind of irrelevant, but at this moment, we just needed a win. We haven't experienced a good win, so when we're going to count winning a press conference, and that kind of brings us into our next topic: is what do we expect? What's the bar we have to set this year for Pat Fitzgerald in year one? Like, how low is the bar, or how high is the bar for you?
Yeah, no, it's been tough. You see me out there, and maybe a little bit less and less. It's just been tough because you want to see high-end talent. I go because covering the NFL, you want to see high-level talent. And yeah, the Spartans have produced a handful of players in the draft, but not at the same level as what's going on in Ann Arbor. So you realize that it's all about talent. It's all about, especially on the heels of the success that they had in the past. That was the beginning of my reporting career, was right at the tail end of D'Antonio. But we still remember the nice run that Coach D'Antonio had, and it really started to raise the expectation. And it just, unfortunately, the Mel Tucker era really collapsed everything and derailed the momentum. But we still got to see the great Kenneth Walker really single-handedly, take care of Michigan. So that was nice to be in the press box, for that contest, and to see his 5-touchdown performance was the height, I think, of just reporting and seeing just an NFL player you got to see Aiden Hutchinson, Kenneth Walker on the field at the same time. And so, for the Spartans, it's always been like, okay, get back to that D'Antonio era and then thrive and do more. So just with Jonathan Smith, the expectations just fell to rock bottom. So I'm looking at it like, okay, just first year, and a lot of coaches deserve the first year you get a pass. You just establish your culture, maybe, a big win, an upset here or there, an opportunity to compete in these games. But I just think that what sunk Jonathan Smith even faster was, the investment made now in the new NIL era. When you invest that money in a quarterback in Aiden Childs, and he barely looks anything better, if not worse than Alessio, you realize, okay, you know what? This is, a player that didn't develop. And it was a situation in which a change had to be made. And it was, interesting to see the decision made to bring in Coach Fitzgerald, because he obviously has a clear understanding of the Big Ten with his time in Northwestern. Yeah, a little bit of noise surrounding his exit, but the biggest question mark we're going to see is, and this, is that when the Spartans would play Northwestern, it was like, okay, if the Spartans can get to 14 points, they're going to win the game, because Northwestern wasn't really known for being an offensive juggernaut. You know what I mean? So I just want to see an offensive identity. I want to see the Spartans run the football well and get back to, I think, what we all know is the formula to win games. Run the football effectively, be able to move the chains, and on defense, just stop being a sieve and stop being a pushover and a team that is not able to get off the field and look organized in some way. So we're starting at rock bottom, but at the very basic level, you want to see Coach bring in, over the next couple of years, bring in his guys and his philosophy, and bring kind of that, like the Lions, the grit mentality, and being able to kind of withstand a little bit of adversity. Jonathan Smith's teams could not withstand any adversity. They'd start off strong, and then the first punch that they took, the season was derailed. It was over. So I just want to see a little bit of adversity being able to be overcome with under Pat Fitzgerald.
Every year, starting out 2-0, 3-0, and then just calling it quits because Big Ten play started.
Right.
And I think and it's sad that we're like the bar is this low, but it's just get to a bowl game, and then when we face these top teams, like, look competitive. Like the fact that we're first half down at 50-7 versus Ohio State. Granted, sometimes that did happen with D'Antonio, and it happened 2021 during that magical Mel Tucker year in Ohio State. But it's like, we were able to pop off a nice win here and there. And that's what we haven't experienced the last 4 years, is that if the team was better, the game was over on paper. It was over in the stadium. Like, there was no fighting chance for an upset. And I think that's just what Spartan fans want to see at minimum. Grant, we're just talking at minimum, is that we can just get back to competing again. And then we can see the growth. Like, it's nice that to have Pat Fitzgerald knowing the Big Ten, Joe Rossi being able to retain some of these players and at least provide some sort of continuity on defense. Courtney Hawkins, the wide receiver coach, some continuity on offense. And, of course, bringing back the golden boy and Max Bulla as the co-defensive coordinator. Like, it's just, on paper, the offseason has been nice, as in filling the coaching staff. I think even in the transfer portal, they brought in some really good pieces for the offensive line, because, like, the last 4 years, even 5 years, we can include 2021, there was no offensive line. It seemed like there was just tackling dummies out there. That's what made 2021 so magical, because Kenneth Walker was breaking every tackle, and somehow Peyton Thorne had enough time to drop back and just drop it in a bucket to Jaden Reed or Jalen Naylor. So to just see some form of fight in the trenches is also like it's what we need to just be competitive again.
Yeah, no doubt. Exactly. In the trenches. And I think that two players that I highlighted that I want to see especially, early on, is Charles Brantley's back after a season with Miami, Florida. He was a shutdown corner. And if everybody remembers the game winning pick he had against Michigan back in 2021. And also, too, I think that, Michigan State has become known for kind of developing some running backs that can make some plays. And I just think that Cam Edwards, the back out of UConn, I think has a chance to be, somebody that makes some plays early on. And so, like you said, it just takes time. And like you said, for a football program, you realize it's just going to take a little time. And, those 6-7 wins, the playoff is out of the question for a time being. But I think that, it can happen. I think that Pat Fitzgerald is somebody that can galvanize a room.